Let's go to Adesua, who is right there to tell us what exactly is happening at the moment. It's a rainy day. Adesua, help us make sense of what help us make sense of what exactly is happening. You know, as Africans, I remember back in the day, perhaps maybe you remember, in some section of Benin City, they have the rainmakers who can come and help you
stop the rain.
Stop the rain. So how is it looking at the moment?
Well, Sulaiman, I don't know about the rainmakers and the rain holders, but they definitely didn't do their job here today in the nation's capital. Yes, pardon my umbrellas, it was a last-minute arrangement. The weather is definitely playing a significant role in setting the tone for the inauguration here today. We are blessed with showers of blessings in the nation's capital, and we are barely 3 hours away from the official start of this program, but it's a beehive of activities behind me. If the camera can allow and pan around, a lot of security presence. It's called this one of the biggest security operations in the country, and you will not be wrong, apart from the election day, where Nigeria is known to shut down its economy because of elections, and you have the presence of security everywhere. Sulai Ungazi, it took us about 4 security stop checks to get here from our office to the Eagle Square, despite coming in, you know, a branded vehicle, definitely saying journalists and with our tags, but, you know, there was proper check. And I think that also is significant to say that, you know, what the Inspector General of Police has been saying the past couple of days, that they would leave no stone unturned, and troublemakers, you know, should think twice before they try to foment any trouble today. I think he was right, and I mean, he's putting that to test today, just getting here. And like I said, a lot of security operatives, the NSCDC is here, the Nigeria Security Civil Defense Corps, the Nigeria Police is here. I've seen definitely members of security from the presidential villa here. I've seen protocol officers from the presidential villa as well, just making sure everything is on point, the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
The villa for a while now. Talk to us about preparations that have gone into, you know, transitioning from one administration to the other. What have the highlights been? Of course, there was the inaugural dinner last night, but before all of that, paint a picture of how smooth or otherwise this really has been so far.
I can tell you, Ungazi, it's a big, it's a very, pardon me to just drop this umbrella and take a bit of the shower at this time so I don't get distracted. It's been a big preparation, if you can put it that way. It's been a week-long event or activities put together. And let me just also remind you that President Muhammadu Buhari is yet to dissolve his cabinet. He did say that we work till May 29. So as we speak, we do have the federal cabinet of President Muhammadu Buhari. We're yet to get any notes, any confirmation that that cabinet has been dissolved. Yes, it's been a week long of activities culminating to today, Ungazi. Just yesterday night, we had the inauguration dinner and gala night, where you had the president-elect make a speech. We had President Muhammadu Buhari also talk about that. But this whole event is really put together by the Presidential Transition Committee, put together by President Muhammadu Buhari. And of course, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, is heading that transition committee. Empowered by the president, we had an investiture on Thursday last week conferring the highest national award on the president-elect and his vice, Kashim Shettima. I think that was really the start of the event. We've had, yesterday we also had the denominational service in church. On Friday we had a public lecture, and of course other events, or to be honest, Ungazi, that has culminated into today, which is the icing on the cake. Some would say this is just a rubber stamp of what happened in February during the aftermath of the election, when a winner was announced by the country's electoral body, INEC. So this is just ceremonial. We've had a president-elect, even though that is being challenged by the major opposition parties, the People's Democratic Party and Labour Party, who I can almost tell you for free, will not be part of today's event because they have decided to go the legal route to challenge the outcome of the elections that saw President-elect Bola Tinubu announced as Nigeria's 16th president.
Let me quickly take you to your area of operation, which is the Villa. And just before today, we saw you, go with them having that very, very important round of the looking at the ASO Clinic and, of course, the ASO Rock Clinic and a tour by the First Lady and a few other persons that have actually taken such tour, the president leading the president-elect. And of course, a quick one here. We understand that the cabinet was actually dissolved late night, midnight. Yes, quickly. But again, paint us a picture of the scenario you witnessed while there at the Villa. First, looking at the clinic.
Thank you very much, Sulai, for that correction, because we were out till late last night at the inauguration dinner and award. President Muhammadu Buhari made some appointments, and he still, released, the media office still released messages into the early hours of today, and I must have missed that dissolution of the cabinet, but thank you for that correction. Yes, I've been covering President Muhammadu Buhari in the last 1 year. I've been incredibly opportune to do that. Not many journalists have the opportunity to cover the presidential villa, and I'm grateful for that. The President Muhammadu Buhari's administration will be remembered for many things. It will be a bittersweet experience for many Nigerians who say, on one hand, perhaps will be remembered for some legacies and reforms, that we would see in a couple of years with the ripple effect of those reforms. And he himself, that's President Muhammadu Buhari, in his farewell message yesterday did say that he's leaving Nigeria better than he met it in 2015, even though he apologized that some of his economic policies may have brought, tough experiences for Nigerians. He apologized to Nigerians, and that was not the first time he was doing that in the last couple of months. But Sulai, I can tell you that covering the president is also a bittersweet experience for me and many journalists as well, especially with an administration such as President Muhammadu Buhari. The notion that you wine and dine because you cover the president, you have access, unfettered access to him, remains just that. It's a notion. With the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, there was COVID-19 pandemic. Like I said, I just came to the villa about a year ago. That cut a lot of access, even to the meetings with the president and his cabinet. The meetings turned to hybrid or virtual. Reporters were limited. You hardly saw the president. I've been in the presidential villa for 1 year. And I can tell you that the president had not had any interaction with the press corps directly in the last 1 year. I've also been opportune to travel with President Muhammadu Buhari twice in 1 year. One to a foreign trip and the other to a local trip. I was with him in DC in December at the US African Summit, where he was one of the prominent African leaders to make speeches and, of course, lead panels such as energy transition for Africa, just energy. It's amazing to cover the presidential villa. Yes, you see a lot, but at the same time, it does seem like you're unable to, touch it. There's a lot going on. There's nothing like exclusive when it comes to the presidential villa, Sulaiman. It's what you're giving, you're reporting. There's been a lot. Some would say this administration has not been, the relationship between the press and the presidency has not been so palatable, has not been so free as it should be. There were a lot of gagging, a lot of limited access. The president spoke through proxies. He had one presidential media chat in his entire 8 years. Although networks such as Arise News Channel had, the privilege to have exclusive interviews with the president, but he spoke through proxies most of the time. He had broadcast messages through the state-owned media. Most of the time we relied on footage from the state-owned media to put together our own pieces, even though I was in the presidential villa. So I could write a book, honestly, on my experience at the presidential villa, but I can say it's a privilege. It's a privilege.
Definitely. Adesua Morwan, I mean, you couldn't have put it any better. And I'm sure you have a lot of expectations with the incoming administration, especially on the issue that you raised there about the level of openness. There wasn't, much of it as far as you experienced in the last 1 year. All right. Thank you very much, Adesua. Of course, we'll be coming back to you definitely. I hope the rains will cooperate so you don't have to go back to that large umbrella.
That's a canopy.
As a matter of fact.
And we do need that.
We actually do. Maybe the rains are saying, look, we're cooperating with what's happening in Nigeria today, and we're, giving showers of blessing. Prof. Adeni, before we talk too much, let's come back to you on, some of the things you heard from Adesua there, covering the villa in the last 1 year. Some of the points raised about the level of, it was a case of the more you look, the less you see, as far as this was concerned there, based on what she's told us. Speak to that, the fact that in all of 8 years, we only had, well, thankfully, Arise was able to get that exclusive with President Muhammadu Buhari. What do you make of that, and what would be your expectations, with the incoming administration?
Yeah, you remember we mentioned it earlier.
Yes,
that in the area of communication, he didn't do well at all, and a leader should actually communicate. Presence matters, and presence is not just physical, but of course, pronouncement, expression. It has a way of giving confidence to the populace that our leader is there. Being aloof all the time, being reticent, it's unhelpful to good governance. And we saw much of this in the Buhari administration. We have had previous presidents in the past, who were forthcoming, who were always very responsive, and of course, to a very large extent, it showed that they were present. Even military president Babangida was a very expressive president. At every point in time, he would volunteer information, somewhat very engaging. He engaged the media, etc., etc. Obasanjo didn't do any less. He held his monthly media briefing, even though it could be tempestuous, it could be back and forth, but at least he was there. I didn't do badly as well. And of course, Jonathan was very expressive. But we didn't see much of that in President Buhari, and it wasn't helpful. We are expecting, yes, in terms of covering the villa has always been like that. Remember, I was also a journalist in Abuja. Villa is always like that, largely regimented, largely regulated for different reasons. Of course, security people will tell you that it's important to keep that security ambience. That essence should be there. It shouldn't be too exposed because it represents the sovereignty of the country, the embodiment of our nationhood. Well, that's a matter for argument. In journalism, we wouldn't really like that. We want to cover as much as possible, to inform, educate, entertain as much as possible, and it's not restrictive to any particular institution, as the case could be. But be that as it may, we expect the next president to be much more communicative, much more volunteering. We should see his presence, not just physical presence as proof of life or as proof of health, but as proof of capacity and ability. And show a good understanding of what is at hand and the direction you are headed. But it has a way of galvanizing confidence, of instilling confidence in the people, in those who are going to help you, and these are the people are the eventual set of group that will help you. But if they don't hear from you, then where do they think they will proceed? Proxies, Ngozi and Suleiman. Proxies. You see, in communication, really, what the principal matters more than proxies and lieutenants. Once proxies are not supposed to be relied on. They're supposed to be people who you use sparingly when you don't have time or maybe you are engaged and you use them. But rely on them completely is an anomaly, and that's a disservice to good governance.
Absolutely. We have to leave it there, Professor Abiodun Adeni. Thank you so much. Waking up so early, joining us on this special on Inauguration Day, May 29th. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.